Jai is a personal development and leadership program for teens and young adults. Our work with young people includes teaching of mindfulness, mental health literacy, and moral and ethical decision making. We're also here joined by our 2021 Youth Advisory Council members who are on a mission to share the importance of mental health literacy amongst young people.
So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest life coach, Karen Lazarus. Dr. Karen Lazarus is a trauma-informed specialist in addiction medicine and certified IREST Yoga Nidra meditation teacher. She is trained in integrative medicine and a variety of mind and body practices, and she is especially interested in teaching about the effects of stress, trauma, and providing tools for regulating the nervous system. She has taught IREST as a part of group counseling in the treatment of opioid and other substance use disorders. She has also taught mindfulness and IREST to students, teachers, and parents in elementary education. So I'll pass it on to Karen Lazarus now.
But why is this yoga?
At least in Yoga Nidra, what the reason that it's practiced lying down is just to be able to have a relaxed body so that you can have a relaxed mind. And, you know, in many different meditation practices, they tell you, oh, you're supposed to sit a particular way. And then a lot of people think, I can't meditate because I can't sit like that. And then, yeah, I can't sit like that. And then my mind goes, my mind goes off. Well, that's what minds do. Mm-hmm. And the question is not that we have to stop the mind. We just notice whatever's coming up in that mind. And every time you notice your mind taking you away, that's a moment of mindfulness. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. At least here in this country in particular, when you think of yoga, you think of all the postures that we do. But in fact, if you actually read the yogic texts, basically the purpose of any yoga postures is to enable us to be able to then meditate. If people fall asleep, I am never insulted. In fact, I've taught this at the VA Medical Center, and this was with people with a lot of trauma, a lot of insomnia. I was honored if they fell asleep, actually. I thought that was wonderful. The reason for lying down is to promote a more relaxed body so that you can promote a more relaxed mind. But, for people who say, I can't stay still because they're so activated, that's what their nervous system is telling them, I need to move around. And that's okay. Just notice what you're feeling as you do the practice. The first step in trauma treatment is helping people come to a sense of safety. I so think that what you're doing with all of your programming is so incredible, and helping people to come to that and to offer it to each other. So the thing is that our nervous systems are always responding to each other's nervous systems. Right. And we need to know that, and we need to know how we can utilize that to help calm another and to help calm ourselves. Well, as my teachers always say, little and often, just little and often. And little can be just taking one little piece of it. It can be just taking, a few slow, deep breaths. It can be taking a couple of minutes to access that, I know you've done previously a guided meditation on the safe place. It can be just some kind of rhythmic movement or like the Qigong or whatever. There are many different tools, and there's no way I could have gotten into all of them, but there are so many tools that we can use to regulate that vagus nerve, and to just help us come back to that sense of safety. And just having even one tool and doing it little and often, a couple of minutes a day, mm-hmm, when things are calm, so that eventually you're going to remember, oh yeah, I'm not so calm now, and this is what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
So we come into this world hardwired to connect. In fact, our survival absolutely depends on it. And when our connection to our caregivers is healthy, safe, and secure, then we're able to grow and learn and thrive. But when that relationship, that connection is not safe and secure, when we experience other events that may be traumatic, that trauma gets stored in our brain and our bodies. And what we end up with is stress and trauma. So I am really happy to be able to share this conversation with you about some of the effects of chronic stress and trauma, and hopefully offer you some tools that you might be able to add to your toolkit to transform that trauma into healing. So what I'm going to talk about is the autonomic nervous system and how it regulates the body. We'll talk about the activation that occurs when our nervous system is dysregulated, and we'll talk about how we can return to regulation system. And the autonomic nervous system is the part of the nervous system that controls our automatic functions. So some of the things that we actually touched on in that nervous system check-in, like the heartbeat, the breath, it controls our digestive system, our blood pressure. And when I learned about the autonomic nervous system many years ago, basically what I learned is there's the sympathetic nervous system that helps us to come back to safety when there's danger by sending us into fight or flight. And there's the parasympathetic nervous system that when we do feel safe, that enables us to rest and digest. This picture, however, is not complete. So I'm going to introduce you to your autonomic nervous system through something called the polyvagal theory, which is going to be a little bit more complete. And so the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body, and it starts at the brainstem, way at the bottom of the brain, and it wanders through the body. And in fact, the word vagus actually comes from a root that means wanderer. And so it wanders through the body, and it innervates our gut, our diaphragm, our lungs, our heart. There's a branch that innervates our throat and our voice box. There's branches that go to our facial muscles, and another branch that goes to the little teeny tiny muscles inside the ear and actually regulates how well we can hear voices or which sounds that we can hear. The polyvagal, well, poly means more than one. So it turns out that the vagus nerve has two branches that function completely differently. And one branch of the vagus nerve responds to cues of safety. So it's activated when we feel safe. And what it does is it then enables us to be in that rest and digest state. But importantly, it helps us to connect with one another. There's another branch, however, and that branch of the vagus nerve responds to cues of life threat. Rather than keeping us in connection, it actually takes us out of connection and sends us into shutdown. So these are two different branches of the vagus nerve, and they put the body in a completely different state. So that's two parts of the autonomic nervous system, but there's another part, and that is the sympathetic nervous system, which rather than coming off of the brainstem, these are nerves that come off of the spinal cord, and it gets activated by cues of danger. It sends us into fight or flight. And how it does that is through a concept that was coined in this polyvagal theory called neuroception. And what neuroception is it's how our nervous system decides whether people or situations are safe, dangerous, or life-threatening from outside the body in our environment. And it's also looking for signals between individuals, so our interactions with one another. And the really important thing to understand is that this neuroception is actually unconscious. So the nervous system is simply doing this 24 hours a day, even while you're asleep. And it's basically asking one question. And that question is, am I safe? And if you're not safe, it will let you know it. So when we're talking about how do we decide whether people around us and our relationships are safe or not, that's dependent on facial expressions, body language, and rhythm and tone of voice. So these are the things that the nervous system is constantly checking on. Here are the three possible neuroceptions. And each of these different categories will put us in a completely different body state. So in this state of safety, we have social engagement, and it enables us to be able to be in that state of safety with rest and digest, but it also enables us to connect to our friends and the people around us. And what we're doing is we're getting cues from their facial expressions, body language, rhythm, and tone of voice that tell us, oh, I'm safe. So now I can connect with them. But let's say things really deteriorate, or it's a different situation, and the nervous system is saying, this is dangerous. So I'm going to call that the yellow zone. And totally different body state. We are now geared up we get mobilized into fight or flight. That's our sympathetic nervous system kicking in. So when things are stressful, so although this event in this picture may have happened before many of you were born, but that was from September 11th, 2001, people didn't sit around think when they were in the area of the World Trade Center, they didn't start to think, what do I do now? Their nervous system just sent them flying out of there. Just simply, this is an automatic thing that happens. So if we can run away or we can fight it off, okay, so that's there to keep us safe. But let's say the nervous system thinks that, no way, I can't fight this off. I can't run away. I'm going to call this the red zone. And that puts us in a different state. That's that immobilization, that's shut down and freeze. So people, even people who are being assaulted, they might not fight it off. They might just go into this freeze response. And basically what happens is we get numbed. We can have dissociation where it's like the mind is not there in the body, or you can even pass out. And again, the really important thing here is it's not a conscious choice. It's the nervous system functioning to keep us safe. In fact, some people may be more likely to survive if they don't fight. These are all survival mechanisms. And in this yellow and red zone, we hear things differently. We don't hear normal human voices. We hear loud, high-pitched shrieks or very deep tones, because these are predator sounds. So the important thing here is it is only when we're in this green, safe space that we can socially connect with one another. There's less demand on the body, and it is only in this state that we can experience health growth and restoration. It is only in this state where we can learn. So think about, being in school and being stressed. You can't learn when you're stressed. So I have a question for you. And again, you can unmute or you can put it in the chat box. When you are in that green zone, What words would you use to describe this state? Okay, and I also invite you to just think about this. Where would you feel this? And what might you see, and what might you hear, and what might you um, um, even taste or smell, wherever it is that you are in that state. So now in the yellow zone, what do you experience when you're activated? Yeah, so think about that. So when we did that nervous system check-in, the things that you just mentioned about heartbeat and muscle tension, these are things that when you're checking with your nervous system, you can feel if you can check with your nervous system, you can feel that when it's just starting to happen. And that gives you more choice. Okay, so what about that red zone when you're shut down? What do you experience? None of these states, like even the yellow and the red zone, it's not that they're bad states. They're really there for our survival. But when it becomes a problem is when we get stuck there. And many people do get stuck because of especially because of early experiences in life. We are more likely, if we've had a lot of traumatic experiences early in life, we're really more likely to get stuck there. So the first thing that's really important is starting to notice when these states are starting to happen and having a toolkit to help us to come out of those states and make our way back. So so that's the important point about being trapped. So, okay, so now how do we get from dysregulation to regulation? So one of the most important ways of coming back to regulation is through co-regulation. And this is when one person's regulated nervous system helps to regulate another person's dysregulated nervous system. And so what I really appreciated from your group's introduction in the beginning about that uplifting others. And that uplifting others is actually an act of co-regulation. So think about a baby. Babies are not born with the ability to soothe themselves. So what do we do when we have a screaming baby? We pick them up, we hold them, we may stroke them, we use our soothing voice in order to calm them down. And the more that happens, the more they start to learn to be able to regulate themselves. But it's not only babies, because this is true throughout the whole life spectrum. Even elderly people, even people with dementia, they can be calmed by another calm nervous system. So being able to be present to people and help them to co-regulate is important. And when you're dysregulated, one of the things that might be helpful for you is to connect with somebody else who can help you to regulate your nervous system. But there are other things that can help. So one is breathing exercises. I know you've worked with this in Jaya a lot. And what's particularly soothing is the out breath. So when you really lengthen the out breath, that is the parasympathetic part of the breath cycle, and it's soothing. So even as you're listening to me now, maybe you might try just taking a couple of slow, deep breaths, but really slowing that out breath. Other things that can be regulating are movement, and particularly when you're in the shutdown state, starting just moving. So, and particularly rhythmic movement. So dance can be helpful, and included in this, for those of you who were present last month for last month's presentation, Dr. Dennery mentioned drumming. This is rhythmic movement that can be really calming. Another thing is touch and compassionate touch. And if you're thinking, well, we're in a pandemic and we can't even get anywhere near each other, there are still things that can be done with touch. And one of the things that can be done is we can do this for ourselves. And what you see in this picture is putting your hand on your heart. So maybe right now you might want to try that, putting one or both hands on your heart and just feeling what you feel. And what this does is it releases oxytocin, which is a very calming hormone. Other things that can be helpful are Tai Chi and Qigong. And I know you've had some Qigong exercises in your programming. Again, this is rhythmic movement, and it's a very meditative movement. Other things are yoga and meditation, and these can be very healing and relaxing and regulating. The practice that I'd like to offer you now is a particular style of meditation called Yoga Nidra. This can be a very deeply relaxing practice, but I never guarantee to anybody that any meditation will be relaxing, because there's always the possibility of challenging material coming up. And I always want everybody to be aware of that. And if challenging material comes up, one of the ways that you can get through it is just breathe through it. So Yoga Nidra is usually practiced lying down. And you're welcome, as I offer this to you, to lie down if you'd like. And don't worry, even if you fall asleep. It's okay. The word nidra actually means sleep. If you fall asleep, it gets into the subconscious anyway. Yoga Nidra does include mindfulness, but it also includes some other things. So it is a guided meditation. Right now, what I invite you to do is just make your body comfortable. You can do this sitting up. You can do this lying down. You could even do this standing or walking around if you wanted to. Just make yourself as comfortable as you can. And I want you to be aware that this is your practice. There's no way to get it wrong. And starting to feel the support of the surface on which your body is resting. Noticing the points of contact that you're making with that surface. Noticing how gravity is gently holding you in place, and recognizing the support of the earth beneath that has always supported you. Again, there's no way to get this wrong. If you need to move your body at any time during the practice, you're welcome to do so. And opening your senses to the sounds coming to you from around you, from within you. Perhaps noticing any scents in the air, tastes in your mouth. And even if your eyes are closed, just noticing if there are any colors or patterns behind your eyelids. Feeling the touch of the air on your skin. In this practice, you're invited to welcome all perceptions, sensations, emotions, thoughts, even comforts or discomforts. And I invite you to welcome an inner resource of well-being, the sense of being present, alive, relaxed, tranquil, content, happy, peace of mind, that safe green state, to feel present and alive, tranquil, noticing where in your body you feel this sensation. Feeling into this with all of your senses. Experiencing the sights, sounds, and sensations of well-being.
Thank you. Let's give Karen some energy and say thank you, Dr. Lazarus, Karen. We really appreciate it. I'm so glad